Should turn my mic on there. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's meeting of Strategic Priorities, Communications, and Intergovernmental Cooperation Committee for Thursday, July 27th. Have to change that there, Chantel. It says the 17th instead of the 27th, just on the top there. Just like to call to order, first of all, any declarations of conflict of interest? Okay, and approval of agenda. I know, Your Worship, you have a recommendation for
Mr. Chair,
changing the order.
could I ask, for the sake of expediency, because we do have our legal counsel here, Mr. Dave Hooley, under number 7, motion to move into a closed session, that we go there first, and that we could get his, I think, Mr. Hooley, are you, through the chair, are you reporting on both? Okay. So I'd like to move that, if that's okay. I need a second.
Okay, moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Deputy Mayor Yankoff. Those in favor? Okay, good. So we'll move into a closed session as per Section 119-1 E and F of the PEI Municipal Government Act, and that's for a legal opinion on the Charlottetown Area Development Corporation Shareholders Agreement. And the other item under discussion in the closed session will be as per Section 119-1 E and F of the PEI Municipal Government Act, and that's a legal opinion regarding 2018 Affordable Housing Incentive Policy and Development implications.
Mr. Chair, just a point of order. Are we now in, I just want to,
Not yet.
yeah, just, but before we do that, I didn't declare a conflict of interest because 7, we're moving into close, but under 7B, on the advice of our family lawyer, I will have to call a conflict of interest because my daughter's fiance works with one of the companies. So I have to, as I was told by our lawyer, that it's no relation directly to you, but it's best that you remove yourself from the debate.
Okay, so
I just wanted to
noted.
get that on the public record.
Yep, that's fine. So Mayor Brown will be recuse himself for the motion 7B as we're discussing that in the closed session.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, duly noted. So we'll move All right, so we're back into the open session. Thanks to David Hooley for coming in and guiding us through that session. It was very well worth the time spent. So just continuing on with the agenda, we're item number 4, approval of previous draft minutes. Do I have a mover? Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. Any business arising from those minutes? I had a couple of questions of CAO Eleanor, maybe. Where are we with the community survey update? I know last time when we met, we were talking about, we were in the process of, it had just gone out, we had had some response. Can you provide a bit of an update as to where we are with that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's closed now, so the process, we've just reviewed the consultant's presentation, like summary presentation on it. So we're just awaiting, I guess, a final. Did we provide feedback yet? Not yet. So we're providing feedback on their presentation that will be made to council. They'll finalize that, and then we'll bring it.
Will that be made for the August meeting, September meeting?
We can probably bring it to the August Strategic Initiatives Committee meeting. Yeah, end of the month. Yeah.
Okay, great. I just had a question too about the interjurisdiction city-led response team. That was from the Unhoused Encampments Workshop and Next Steps. Just wondering what's the status on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So internally, we started to draft up terms of reference between the police chief and the fire chief.
Okay.
They're working on that together.
Yep.
And when that is ready, we'll reach out to other partners as appropriate.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. No different than what we talked about the other day at the fire. Okay. I had a note. I just want to provide a bit of an update on the cell service area. At our previous meeting, Mayor Brown did suggest that I follow up with Robert Gibbs, which I did. And Robert gave me, did some work on our behalf in terms of trying to hook me up with the appropriate person, with Bell Canada, actually. The original assessment is that there is an issue. It's pretty much a dead zone. It's funny, since the last meeting, I've had a lot more people who have come forth and said that they have very poor reception in that part of Charlottetown as well, too. So he did put me on to a lady with Bell Canada, who unfortunately was on vacation, and I kept getting her. I called her probably 7 or 8 times, and I've only got voicemail back. The first ones were, I'm off on vacation until July 17th, and that was coming up on like July 24th. So anyway, I called again as recently as yesterday and left a message again. So hopefully I'll have a little bit more of an update in terms of what the next steps are going to be for that, and how we can move forward to create better cell service in the. And I don't know whether there's other areas for Charlottetown too or not, but certainly in the my ward, it's a problem. Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I know that I did ask about a follow-up on cell service relating to Hurricane Fiona, and I am asking or requesting that we do find out from our Bell representative when he or she does come in here. I think that's what you want to do, about what is their request or ask on backup fuel availability for their backup generators during any climatic or catastrophic climatic event. So I think I'd like to add that to that discussion.
Okay. When I do get a hold of that person, it would be good to have that discussion and have that information for sure. just in terms of the paperless meeting packages, I know we talked about, I think we've made some progress on that since our last meeting, where we have less paper being used. I think people are getting more comfortable with the tablet. One of the things I was wondering, we did talk about training for some members of council. I don't think it's really a big training requirement in order to get basically functional. Like I showed one council member or something the other day and they said, really, that's all there is to it? So I'm wondering if we can maybe initiate, I don't know who has that discussions, if we can initiate those discussions to see if we can further advance that. I don't know who would oversee that or how that would be approached, but I'm just wondering if that's something that we can keep pushing the needle on.
You being a past administrator, teacher, and myself, we could help out.
I'd be glad to help out.
Were you referring to that member of council that needed some help and said, that's how easy it is, when I asked about the drawing tools?
No, it wasn't. That was a different member. But that's an example of it, though, Your Worship.
It's great, it is. And
Yeah.
you know what? I appreciate that we're at it because it's much easier that if you're
100%.
looking for something, it's a PDF file. You just go to the search the file, like let's say Word, dilapidated houses or dilapidated properties, boom. You get maybe, let's say 20 words. You can just quickly go through your document. So it's much more advantageous doing it
Chair.
wireless.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
We have a great IT group, and I would think that an hour with those folks asking questions
Wouldn't even
would.
be an hour, I
yeah.
don't think.
But I think an hour would, there's a lot of interesting things that they can probably share with us that we don't even know yet,
Sure.
which would be amazing. But I don't think it's as difficult as, we may initially thought it was, but
Yep.
we've got some great IT folks that could probably put together a really good Q&A for us and a demonstration. Yeah.
So maybe we could offer that up to maybe CO Eleanor. You could follow up and initiate those sessions and offer it up to our councillors who are looking for it. I know I'd certainly like it. I mean, I'm functional, but I don't think I'm super techie. Although the mayor was quite impressed with what I showed him the other day.
I like that because I was going to go out and buy that that pen, that digital pen.
There you
But,
go.
Mr. Chair, could I suggest, following up on the deputy mayor, why don't we just have an onboarding session for all of us? And we can just go into the Parkdale room or here, and I will go because there are a lot of more, I'm sure there are a lot more tricks there that I'd like to learn about
Yep.
using the tablet and the functionality of going online and all the other pluses that it offers. So yeah, I think it'd be great for the whole, just whoever wants to come, show up. I'll show up. Thank you, sir.
Me too.
The chair,
Go ahead.
the only thing I would suggest to the committee through you would be that we hold off maybe until September. August seems to be a really, really busy month for other files that we're working on. So I would suggest that we don't look at this onboarding session until we get into September. That's just my,
Sure.
yeah, when I'm back to school.
Sounds good. All right. Next item. Business arising from the minutes, religious signage. Eleanor, do you want to talk about this, or do you want me to? This kind of fell on our committee lap, but it may be best served in another area. Maybe, Eleanor, did you want to speak to maybe the rationale for that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So signage is something that we would address in the zoning bylaw, its usage, where it can be used, if it can be on public land, private land, those rules. So the most appropriate place for it to be taken through would be the Planning and Heritage Board, so we can book that for a future meeting. I suspect it might be a simple amendment to the zoning bylaw to address this issue. Thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, could I just add?
Go ahead.
So that would go back to the Standing Committee for Planning, Development, and Heritage? Is that what you're suggesting, not to the
Planning and
board?
Heritage.
Yeah.
Yep.
So could we put that on the next, Madam Chair or Madam Deputy?
So to clarify, this is going to our Planning and Heritage Committee, not to Planning
Oh,
Board.
Sorry, not board.
Yeah,
My
not-
brain's in board mode right
Yeah,
now.
I know.
Committee.
So it's going back to our, yes, and yes, that absolutely will be on the agenda for our next Planning Committee meeting.
Okay,
Yep.
duly noted. Great. All right, reports and discussions, elections PEI decision and next steps, and strategic plan updates and next steps. And just as an update, I'll have to leave around 10 to 2. I have a previous commitment, so if we go beyond that, maybe Deputy Mayor, you could fill in and take over from there, just in case time. I know we're 1:10, but we'll see how we get along.
Mr. Chair, could I just ask before we request the CAO to take this on? This issue, as we know, has been around since last year. I had a couple of discussions with our CAO about next steps. And because we're in the public forum right now, I would like to recommend or request that that the CAO, the Office of the Mayor, meet with the Clerk of the Legislative Assembly and Mr. Garrity, just to look at some steps going forward. And before that meeting takes place, I would like to get some statistics, data, because I know that we're always looking for data. And I would like to get some data on what it cost the city in 2018 to have the election administered and executed by the Elections PEI office, how many persons were employed for that election, and I would like to have the same for the 2022 election. What was the cost? How many employees were hired to take on this role? And that data we can use as a broader discussion on next steps that are outlined in the background or submitted to us by our CAO. Thank you.
So, looking at the report here, that would be, I guess, part of the research that we would be doing into the cost of running the own municipal elections. I understand what you're looking at, Your Worship, in terms of trying to come to a mediation, I guess, if you will, or a common
Very good word.
understanding to resolve whatever difficulties may exist between elections PEI and the city. So I'm all for that. I think I'd rather cooler heads prevail, I guess, and that we have, a good wholesome discussion before we go too far down into a whole body of research that may be avoided if we can have some kind of understanding through another discussion, because that discussion has not, I think you had a meeting, CAO Eleanor, with the deputy and the CAO, the CAO.
The chief
Electoral Officer,
and the
sorry,
deputy.
and the deputy, right? So now you're recommending extending that to including you as well? Is that what we're asking?
This, in conversation with our CAO, Eleanor Mohammed, I believe that she did reach out to the clerk of the Legislative Assembly, who is Joe Jeffrey, about the city looking at going to it's referred to as the Legislative Assembly Management Committee, and it's chaired by the Speaker, who is Darlene Compton, and it has 6 members plus 6 members from the Legislative Assembly who sit on that management committee. They oversee the management of the Legislative Assembly, and as you know, Elections PEI reports to the legislature. They don't report to a minister. They report directly to the Legislative Assembly. So, and if you want to add anything, CAO Mohammed, I think that this is a step that we should take before we look at the options that are available.
CEO Ellen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, another step to revisit and have a conversation. There's certainly no harm in having another conversation to see if we can resolve the matter.
Yep.
And if not, we can come back and consider the same options that are in front of us today with a little bit more background and effort to try and resolve it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Try again. We good with that?
I'm good with it. I'm just trying to get some response from the committee members, just to find out if we want to. I think it's just putting it in a holding pattern right now, or holding position until we search out.
Exhaust that possibility.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. And then it allows us to have a fuller discussion on two possibilities that are listed in the report from our CAO.
Okay. Good with that? Deputy Mayor? Deputy Mayor Yankoff? You good with that? Councillor McKinnon?
I don't know, does that require a motion to defer or just to, no?
Well, okay. All right. Next item, strategic plan updates and next steps. CAO Eleanor, if you would like to go with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oh, I see. Sorry, I got lost in the agenda just there for a second. In terms of strategic plan and next steps, there is, well, there's quite a bit of work that we need to do. Really, it's coming up internally from the administration side with a business plan that we currently have an action matrix for the projects related to the strategic plan. But there's a more robust document that I would like to put together. And another important step in terms of the strategic plan is actually socializing it throughout the organization. So for me, those are the next natural steps to happen for it. Thank you.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, just on the strategic plan updates, I've spoken to the CAO about our growth management study of 2019. I don't think that has been released to all of council, the whole report. I know that speaking to Nigel Burns last week, he's with the Department of Finance, and I would like to send a copy to him because he's a economist for population growth and how it will impact our economy locally and regionally. So I believe that's part of our strategic plan, is that we do look at that growth management study and look at where we want to go with it, and what we should be looking at some benchmarks or some timelines and some goalposts to go forward.
Was the growth management not originally issued under planning committee?
My understanding, again, CAO can correct me, but there are different segments to it. There's one on planning. There's also one on our infrastructure. There's a number of facets to that study.
Okay.
I'll just defer that to the CAO if she wishes to speak to it.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you. I actually haven't seen the growth management study yet, so I can't tell you what the different contents are. But in terms of population growth, yes, it impacts our infrastructure, how our city grows. For me, a natural next step with that is once we have the official plan process up and going again, that growth management study also comes before council, because a lot of the information that is in that growth management study is informing the official plan. So it makes sense to bring that as part of the discussion when things get going again this fall.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm just a little bit, when the study was released to us during the Upland presentation, I think the deputy and myself can confirm, we didn't know that this study was being conducted. That was the first I learned about it, when we met with Upland in '02 in that room next door. And I know that some of our engineers were part of it, and so was the planning department, but to be here 4 years, and again, the study is very clear. It's the Growth Management Study 2019, not 2029, but 2019. So I would like to get that report and in the fullness of the report, not just a piece of about planning, but there are parts about the infrastructure that I know that our manager of water and wastewater was part of that working group. So I really like to get a copy of it and sit down and go over it and use that as a tool going forward. And Mr. Chair, if I could say, it could be a tool for us to go to the provincial government about why we need a better share of the taxation collected for municipal, residential, and non-residential properties, because the growing demands on this municipality are growing a lot more than we anticipated, or I think we can handle with the present fiscal firepower that we have, which is only one tool, and that's property taxes. Thank you.
Okay. So CAO Ellender, you'll look into that first? Okay. All right. So we already did item 7 under new business, a couple of items. If it's okay, maybe we'll go with the municipal property naming policy first, if that's all right. And then we'll go to the structure of council committees after that, if that's okay. All right. So the municipal property naming policy, this stemmed from a motion that we dealt with at the last special meeting of council, in which we were looking to rename a segment of Fitzroy Street, Carrie Wynn Way, in memoriam of Carrie Wynn McPherson, the beloved radio host who unfortunately passed away recently. And it was a request that came in to rename the section between Great George Street and Prince Street as Carrie Wynn Way. And it was felt at that council meeting that it may not have been in keeping with our municipal property naming policy. And so it gets sent back here to kind of look at it to see what do we have to do to make it fit with our policy, or how do we incorporate something into our policy in order to allow this to go through, or similar situations like this to go through. So I know that I read the policy, and I'm kind of unsure as to how we amend it, or where we amend it, or what we have to do to amend this. So CAO Eleanor, maybe if you have some thoughts, or if any of the councillors, or your worship, if you have any thoughts as well too, in terms of how we go about looking at our policy to allow memoriams or naming rights or naming situations go to make it work under our policy. So floor's open for comments.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. Because we have this noted under new business, it's kind of a tip of the hat that we'll come back to the next meeting with the report and the recommendation of the changes that need to be made, at which time the committee would actually have a little bit more of a chance to discuss it, because we would have all the background.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
So, Mr. Chair, does that mean that we defer the resolution that was deferred the other night until we do meet. So we're going into September when we revisit. Wow. So when you look at the name and municipal property name and policy, where do you think it would fit?
Well, I was, the only thing I was looking under section 6.1, and I don't, like, I'm not exactly sure what we have to put in here to make this sort of happen, but I don't see anything, I didn't really see anything in the policy that would, that addresses what we're looking to do. We're addressing a particular segment of a certain street.
Well, it
And
was
I was just wondering whether it fit under, somewhere under section 6, the individual naming rights, where it says all individual naming rights must be for a fixed term, should include a sunset clause specifying the duration of the naming opportunity, and they may be subject to renewal and mutual agreement. I don't know if something falls in there. It sort of seemed to me the part where it fit in, and I guess that's the work of whomever
Mr.
to
Chair.
determine where it fits and how it does fit, because I didn't see anything in this policy that sort of spoke to what we're looking to accomplish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What I would suggest is that we have a special meeting of the Strategic Initiatives Committee before the next council meeting. So there's time to make the change, bring it back to the committee, and then it can go back to the next council meeting for a decision.
For
We
the
just
au- for
couldn't
the au-
flip this between the last council meeting we just had and today in time.
Okay, so we'll have a special meeting between now and the August 14th council meeting?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right,
Mr. Chair, just a
Councillor
question.
McKim?
I fully support this, the resolution, but a resident asked a question when we go for the memoriam of Kerry Wynn Way on the road. If Newscap moved, would that follow them to a new location, or would that remain on that portion of the road of Fitzroy Street? I didn't have an answer.
well, I guess that might speak under the fixed term, sunset clause, the duration of the naming opportunity, so I think that would be part, it would fall in under that part, and it would have to be kind of specified in there.
All right, thank you.
It's a good question. All right, so we're good, you'll let us know, CAO Eleanor, when a meeting can come up for that, all right? So the last item, structure of council committees. This was, I guess, kind of I put this on here in conjunction with some other discussions that I've had with various councilors, at different times. And I guess the underlying or overriding question, I guess, is are there ways of doing our business differently than what we currently do? Is kind of the overriding question. And I guess in hand with that would be, are we providing the best governance that we can within our current structure? And I'm not in any way slamming anybody or anyone, but I think it's just it's something that has kind of, I've had some questions myself personally about it. I've had some discussions informally with different people. I have some thoughts that maybe there are some different ways we can do business to make ourselves the best iteration of ourselves that we can be. And I guess I want to put it out there there's nothing ready for public consumption or for council consumption on this at this point. But I do want to, I guess, put the idea out there that there the time might be, or it may be a worthwhile discussion to have if we take a look at how we have things structured. And are there ways to make us more efficient, to improve our efficacy, and to, I guess, improve our overall functionality? And, I know there's been a long-standing tradition with certain routines and practices, and I guess I'm just wondering if maybe there might be an opportunity, and I don't know how that would come about. I don't know whether it would be something, and maybe I could ask this question. I just thought about this morning, actually. Whether it is an opportunity for an onboarding session to have those discussions to kind of flesh out some possibilities, or is it something that has to be held in the public domain at all times? I'm not quite sure. But I'm not really, I guess I'm just kind of preliminarily thinking that I'd like to have the opportunity to, I guess, review how we do things and see if there's a better way of doing things, I guess, is really the overriding question. So I don't know what the regards to the next steps might be, but I did want to have this discussion here to kind of initiate potentially something. I'd open the floor to any comments. CAO, Ellen?
So, Mr. Chair, again, for this one, what we could do, like under new business, we can bring this topic back to the next meeting and provide a little bit more information around the question we're trying to explore as a committee, and just structure it a little differently, perhaps to answer the why of why we're pursuing this, and then see what to build from there. And then throughout that discussion with the committee, it can be decided that maybe this is something to bring a facilitator in, or to have different models to be looked at. But we could put a little bit more meat around it in a report for the next strategic initiatives meeting.
Okay.
And then it will enable a little bit more conversation around it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, it does come at a good time, because we created a practice in the last council that after the second year, we review the committee membership, the committee structure. So this is a good opportunity and probably a good start. And with 4 new councillors, 4 new excellent councillors, I think it's a very appropriate approach, and I appreciate that you do it, that you've started it. And if I look through our procedural bylaw, there are sections that will have to be amended and go through a first reading, second reading. So there's a process that we're engaging in.
100%.
And the deputy mayor recalls that in 2018, 2019, the CAO at the time was proposing amalgamating some of the committees, i.e. finance, human resources, good fit. Public works, water and wastewater, good fit. Parks, recreation, leisure, and environment and sustainability, good fit. Police and fire, that's already there as a, I should say, protective and emergency services. That's maybe could be a one-off, but yeah, I think it's a good time. I can tell you that a former principal of yours, George McDonald, who was mayor back in 1997, he did try it, but it didn't last long, because it took away that the councillor given a report from his or her committee, and speaking of the strengths and the weaknesses and what we have to do going forward. But as someone said to me this morning, standing committees are to provide policy and procedures about how we should operate whatever department. We should not be running the departments. That's up to the managers. That's why we have the hired guns to do that. And yes, we can recommend, suggest, but we're not there to run the bureaucracy, because that's not how the bureaucracy was set up at any level of government. So, Mr. Chair, I want to thank you for putting this on the agenda, and as the CAO said, that she will provide more information and maybe some comparisons jurisdictional scan of what's out there to look at.
Yeah. And I think, with all due respect to my former principal, we're looking at 1997 and 2023. So back then we were teaching with overheads and slides and transparency. So, I guess that's kind of my point, is that I think we're in a different time era, and maybe there is a better way that we can do things differently. And that, I guess, is really the ultimate goal of the exploration, is to best serve the citizens and to do the best work and be the best governing body that we can be. And that's really the ultimate goal. And definitely not to get involved in the operational side of things. It's nothing like that. It's more keeping with how do we best move the city along efficiently.
Yeah.
And
And Mr. Chair, if I could add, I know that the deputy remembers this too, that we did talk about planning, heritage and development being a committee of the whole, right? So it's not just 3 or 4 members of council, it's the whole council and the resident members, which would make a big body of a group of people, because 10 councillors plus 4 to 6 resident members, that's a lot of individuals. But that was discussed, and it didn't float because it just wasn't the will to make it happen. But let's get some ideas to float around there.
yep. All right. Any other comments? Deputy Mayor Yankoff? No? Would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
No other new business, I should say.
Second.
No. Seconded by your worship. Thank you very much, and have a great day.